Well, an ex-guest, a booming left-foot kick, played for the Saints 2002, 3 and 4, having crossed from Fremantle. He would return to Fremantle, putting him in a club that's not as exclusive as I thought it was until I did some research prior to this chat. Jason Daniels, who was a guest on this podcast a couple of seasons ago, was one of those. Most famously, Gary Ablett Jr., of course, Paul Salmon, Essendon, Hawthorn, Essendon, Chris Tarrant, Trent Crode, Peter Bell. There are a few of those. Quite a number of them played for Fremantle in actual facts. But Heath Black joins us on our podcast this week, and thanks for jumping on.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Now, starting off where it sort of began for you, obviously Oakley Chargers, I think, was the path through for you. And I imagine it was always pace and the left foot that was a weapon that would have attracted most people to drawing you into clubland as a youngster.
It was really interesting back then. We were at the Central Dragons really early under Slug Jordan as a sort of 15-year-old. And then Oakley Chargers sort of opened up and we had to start again. So sort of everything that you did in the past was on an even keel again. So you had to prove yourself under David Ackley and played pretty ordinary footy, to be honest, through the early portions of Oakley Chargers, but had the ability to play in the Vic Metro teams and make all Australians, and then eventually get drafted in the under-17 draft, which was one under-17s per club throughout the AFL at that stage, and had the ability to get drafted to the Fremantle Dockers, which was what I would say far too young at the age of 17 to get taken away from your family, but it also gave me the opportunity going to a club that was play 15 games in your first year of getting drafted was an opportunity that maybe I wouldn't have got at a Melbourne club.
So I was going to ask you, how was the move from suburban Melbourne over to Perth? And Fremantle, a reasonably new club at that stage still, and as far as we've been told from other players who have been there too, that it wasn't set up like your big clubs over here. That sort of thing. It was quite suburban still. How was the move from here to there, and how was the first few years being there?
I didn't know anything different, but obviously going to St Kilda later, and I mean, we can talk about Saints later, building our own weights and our gym, and that was quite primitive as well. But we pretty much lived under the South Fremantle stand, and I remember a session moving weights from the underground to the new establishment, which was, huge, like 20 kilo plates. And that was a lot. It took us 4 hours as a team to do that. So in comparatively to Dockers were way behind at that stage. And I suppose on the scoreboard and what you saw early days, it was comparative to how we were going off field. But for me personally, it gave me the opportunity to get early games in as a very, very young child, as I would say.
You're saying about how the facilities at Fremantle were sort of nothing to write home about. Coming back to Victoria and joining St Kilda, at that stage, we probably weren't known for our sumptuous state-of-the-art facilities either. So how did they compare?
I think St Kilda was somewhat, in a way, worse. Fremantle were moving out of that transition of a very primitive sort of training facility. And when I went to St Kilda, but the good part was there was nothing better than going into a change rooms where there was history. And I'll never forget it. The lockers, the smell, the boot room, the person that changes stuff. Like, it was quite amazing, something that I've never experienced in my life. So yes, there was the Fremantle side, but yes, there was the St Kilda side, where I think I really experienced the Melbourne way, the St Kilda way, and that was cool as well. And to build in all the carpenters, Stewie Lowe and Maxie Hutchin and people that can paint, and we're all in there to under Grant Thomas to build our new gym and our boxing facility, which was literally under a grandstand, just covered in dirt on either side of a boxing ring, and to just belt each other in those circumstances was something that I'll never forget.
How good is that for camaraderie? Obviously, it's not ideal. You'd love to walk into places that look like Moorabbin now or look like the Hangar or whatever it may be. But as a group, to sit down there and go, we're going to build this to look like what we want it to look like so we can get better and we can have success and we'll all do it together. And in terms of how important that is at gelling you all?
Well, eventually that team made a prelim final and arguably, to go down by, I think it was 6 points against Port Adelaide, Fraser Garrick kicks his 100th. We're 25 points up from memory at quarter time in the crowd run. It was amazing to think that we built that from the ground up, but I suppose we didn't get the success that we needed, did we, in that year? But on reflection, it was great to think that we put in the hard yards and really build those facilities from our own hands at times, which that's something that we can hang a hat on.
So what was the main reason behind your wanting to move across from here? You sort of became part of that second wave of recruits that we've done under Malcolm Blight, but he's left and Grant took over, and then we got another short spurt of a couple more recruits, a few more draftees and that sort of thing coming in. What was your reasoning looking at wanting to come over here?
Mine was purely from Melbourne. So old records and pies and all of that. I watched Jason Dunstall, I think, kick 16 goals. I was very privileged to see what happened at Waverley Park. I used to ride my bike there. So I think after 5 years at Fremantle, I wanted to play in front of my friends and family and move back to Mulgrave where I grew up. And for the next 3 years, that's sort of where it all happened. I think in an ideal world, I had my first child at 21, Chase, and Caden came along at 23. It was a really young parenting plan, if you want to call it that. And Melbourne, at that stage, after 3 years, requesting a trade back to Fremantle, was really to keep a relationship with my partner together. So that's why I went back. If that relationship was okay and everything was going well, I would have been a St Kilda person for another 10 years. But obviously had to go back to Fremantle. And St Kilda were very accommodating of that. They knew that there was some family problems that need to be addressed, and that's why they eventually made it great.
Heath, you touched on 2004 and that preliminary final that we just lost, but probably the most famous game that season was we call it the Troy Schwartz game, the Aussie Jones point game.
Yep.
You started the chain that got the ball into Troy's hands to kick that goal. And there's also a famous shot when the siren went. You had the ball in your hands, you just threw it in the air in delight. Your memories of that game, and was Aussie Jones kick a point or out of bounds?
I was only talking about that game today. I currently work for the Eastern Football Netball League as a community club manager, and we had a young fella just talking about old stuff, and the Brisbane Lions team was brought up. So a lot of names were rattled off, and on the night I played on Martin Paul, and oh goodness me, maybe mid in the last quarter, he gave away a free kick to me, and I gave him a fair bit of lip, and I think that possession of play transgressed after that free kick, and we won. And then when I had the ball down very well with Mr. Pike, and he was an intimidating figure. So, look, I remember that night vividly. Wow, we had Brisbane's measure that year, and that one just hurt. It hurts immensely because I think if we get over the line in Port Adelaide, which we probably should have, things might have been a bit different, but no one remembers second or third.
One thing I do remember from that preliminary final, though, was you kicked a goal just before the three-quarter time siren where you took 2 or 3 bounces and kicked one from outside 50 on your left. It's a pretty underrated goal in a final, to be honest. But in terms of the moment in that game that you did mention, crowd running on, obviously there's a million things going through your mind as a player, but we kicked the first couple, we're on fire, Porter under pressure, Garrick's lining up for that shot at goal for his 100th. Is there any thought in the back of your head thinking, geez, I hope the crowd doesn't run on, or is that a million miles away at that stage?
Miles away. I've never experienced anything like that in my career. I can just remember nearly, like I was verbally in altercations with, people running on the ground. Like, it was crazy. But you could debate that gave us a massive loss in momentum. And I was playing on Byron Pickett at that stage, and we've had many tussles throughout our career. And I just remember it as a massive one-on-one game, people at each other, Josh Carr. It was insane. And it could have gone either way. And I firmly believe, and again, it doesn't matter because it's history. If we had made the grand final, we win. But St Kilda supporters won't. We're in enough pain as it is.
So thinking of the your boxing rings and that sort of stuff that would be set up under the stands and that, and there was one day you brought it out onto the training track itself. You had a little bit of a dust up with Dick Revolt. Was that just a situation of it was a match sim and you're just in the moment and there was nothing really in it, just something that happened? And how were the two of you after that? Was it all good from there?
I think honestly, and I think that maybe out there, but maybe not. But going through some absolute shit at home and really teetering with your relationship and whether you need to go back to WA. I don't think I was playing that well at that stage. I think I had a quad injury and it was I think it was very much circumstantial. And, but what I would say was it didn't go down well. And I reckon I sat and watched the footy show, which was pretty big at the time. And they pretty much said that I was suspended. And I think I spent 5 weeks back at Springvale playing in the VFL, like dumped. So, there's a fair sanction there. I think I even played in a prelim final for Springvale, which we lost. So, yeah, it was nothing against Nick. And obviously, geez, what a decorative career Nick had after that. But, yeah, it was significant. There was a fair crack and there was major outcomes after that.
If you'll move back to Perth after your time at St Kilda, you're at St Kilda a little bit longer than you originally planned because there was some issues with your paperwork being lodged. Back in the day, there was a bit of media chat that a fax machine had broken down and that caused it all. Tell the story.
100% correct. Was obviously, and it's well documented through a book I wrote. Requested a trade, not because I wanted to leave St Kilda, but because I was trying to save my family from. My manager was trying to get Ron Joseph at the time. God bless. Just missed it. Just was hanging on, trying to get the best deal for his player. So I went back, crawled my way back. Can you imagine? Back to St Kilda. Everyone knowing that I requested a trade, and I think everyone knew why, so it wasn't that bad. But Grant Thomas, to his weird ways, put me in the leadership group. And that was very, very interesting.
Well, his philosophies on leadership grew and rotating captains and all of that type of stuff, which we sort of see now. In terms of, did you take that as I'm not sure that I'm 100% ready for that, or did you take it as that's a great show of faith given everything that they're still putting their arms around me here?
I think it was a way for Grant to try and straighten me up a fair bit. There was a fair bit going on off field, which is well documented, but It actually worked, and to be able to be, it was probably not warranted at all, but it was maybe a way that Grant could manipulate, and I say that with respect, a way to curb my ways, and it worked massively. So took a little while probably, and I suppose I was like someone that was bought in just to, you got Robert Harvey, like the list of names in the leadership group was ridiculous, but I was there more to observe. But then as the year got on, I had the confidence to be able to contribute. I'm not sure whether that contribution went that far. Who knows? But it was just an amazing experience to be able to be in that leadership group. And then that propelled me to be in the leadership group in the Fremantle Dockers as well when I went back there. So, consistent player, but also to have the leadership qualities that were instilled by the club was an amazing factor.
So talk about GT. We know he had interesting ways. We know he threw
Definitely.
different things up at time to time, and just it was a little out there at times, but he also very centered. But going from things like being 10-0 in 2004 and taking day training on the movies, it seems like a strange move, or just look at or think back about and go, that was quite strange compared to any other coach you've ever had or anything?
Had the ability to push buttons on certain individuals, had the ability and the nous to know when to push those buttons on certain individuals, knew who to target within the team with those certain individuals to bring the best out of themselves. And he, boy, oh boy, we had a love-hate relationship, but to this day, I can ring him and ask him to appear at a speaking gig, and he will not charge. He'll actually bring something to that speaking gig. So for me, in the environment and in it, there was a love-hate. But on reflection, boy, oh boy, he's done a lot for me and the club. And the role that he made me sort of play was you're playing on the best opposition player. You're not a tag. You're a run with. When they have the ball, you shut them down. When we have the ball, you run off. You do your best. Like he gave me the ability to play on all the best players in the AFL through that period of time, and that's just an amazing experience.
Last one from me, Heath. A question we asked our guests who sort of have played for more than one club, the obvious one, where your loyalties are lying now, and secondly, just quickly, what's life doing for you now?
Yeah, mine's a real weird one with Saints and Freo. As I discussed, I was sort of torn away from St Kilda with the relationship stuff. So I can't sort of pinpoint who goes first, and played more games for Freo, but my experience at St Kilda was amazing. What I'm doing now, I worked at the AFL. I've had a year off. I worked at the AFL in the mental health team, which looks after our talent pathway. And only recently just took up a role with the Eastern Football League, Football Netball League as a club and community manager. So I've been coaching local footy, but now gone into administration, which is a little different, but it's still heavily involved. Still got 4 kids, part-time sort of stay-home dad. So it's really quite busy. But yeah, enjoying it. It has its challenges, but as we all do in this current climate.
Final one from me. Also, you mentioned the work in the mental health space, which has been extremely important. Do you feel the game now, not so much from when you finished, but when you started, even in the mid-90s, how far has footy come? I mean, obviously, the game has got more and more professional, but in terms of looking after that side of the game?
I can remember doing mental health presentations in my sites across footy, anywhere in Australia, really. when was it, like 2011, and from where it's come from then to now is extraordinary, and it gives me hope that it'll just continue. I think we as a society probably still think that, oh, it's an excuse, but ultimately it's not, and we actually treat it really seriously, especially the suicide rates within Australia is massive, and the ripple effect of suicide is huge. And that's why I got really, and still am really, a massive advocate around suicide prevention and mental health is really important. So, look, I still have my challenges every single day with mental health, but if I can help someone understand it, feel more comfortable, I've done my job. And I think all of us have a recommendation to do that themselves, to pass on to society, and make sure that suicide net, that safety net, we can capture people, because it's really important.
As someone who both played with and played against, when we all scared of Eric,
didn't he just transition his career from the full-back rangy player from West Coast to the wing, and then decided, you know what, I'm going to lift some still. He's got and really scary, and decided that he was going to plonk himself forward. And it was good for me, because I just run down the wing. Character of the game with that stinking mullet. And just a true Aussie yobbo.
Heath, it's a great way to wrap it up. Thank you very much for jumping on with us and reflecting on the journey. You've done terrific things for both clubs and continue to do terrific things in footy. So thanks very much for jumping on.
It's a pleasure, and well done, and a great concept, and I wish you all the best.